You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. Turn your dream home into a reality with Home Creations, a family-owned and operated builder with over 40 years of trusted experience right here in Oklahoma. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to schedule a showing or visit our website for more details. Home Creations, building homes, shaping futures, strengthening communities. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are down in Oklahoma City off Automobile Alley, which has done a great renovation recently. It's nice to come down here when there's not that much, traffic and digging of the roads going on. It is finished, sort of, but the place looks awesome. Gives me great pleasure, though, to introduce our guest today, Senator James Lankford, who is the first senator to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. Excited to learn a bit more about you.
Well, thanks. I'm the practice round then, if I'm the first senator to be able to get on. So.
Yeah, practice round, or maybe just you'll be the only one, and after this one, nobody will ever want to speak to me again.
Everyone else will say I'm never doing that.
Never doing that again. But no, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you're taking time out of your busy schedule to share a little bit about your story. There's a lot of things to cover, and so I look forward to. We're going to do a part one today. I look forward to learning all of it, and people listening. There will be a part two coming out. Just want to set that context before we get into it. I want to ask you to start because it's coming up soon this summer, and I think the last time we were very close in the same vicinity was you sat behind me at the PBR last summer.
I'm a big fan of the PBR. Now, I wouldn't have taken you as a PBR kind of guy on this. So
I probably would have said the same thing. But tell me about that. How was your PBR experience?
Oh, PBR is so much fun. By the way, it's good to get a chance to visit with you. I don't get home very often. I've been in D.C. for 10 weeks straight, and so to be able to be back home, it is great to be back in Oklahoma right now. But if anyone hasn't been to PBR, and they don't even know what it is, professional bull riding is the PBR there. If you've not been to a PBR event, you need to go. It is something along the lines of a rock concert meets bulls, meets all the drama and pomp and circumstance of a bullfight. It's just it's a team sport, and people don't know that. It's a team sport where literally different bull riding teams will then compete against each other on it, but it's a remarkably fun event. And I actually, the last time I went, I called some friends that have never been to a PBR, and I said, okay, you're going to go with me. They're like, we're going to a bull riding event. I was like, yeah, you're going to a bull riding event. I'm going to get you out of your element.
You weren't wearing a cowboy hat, though. We haven't gone that far yet.
I don't wear the cowboy. I don't own cattle, and so I am a firm believer in all hat, no cattle is a way to be able to depict someone who is pretend cowboy. That's not really a cowboy. I think you can enjoy bull riding without having to actually own cattle, ride horses.
Yeah, and Cindy was with you too, right?
Yep, Cindy was with me.
What does Cindy think about
She
riding?
loves it. Now, I have to tell you, Cindy really enjoys professional bull riding, but there is an event in Tulsa every year called Smoke and Guns.
Okay.
It is the firefighters against the police officers in octagon cage fighting.
Oh,
I mean, we're talking full on. Just full on MMA. Sorry. MMR is measles, rubella. It's not that, It's MMA.
Yeah.
So it is a full-on competition with that. Cindy goes to that, but does not like it. She loves the firefighters. She loves the law enforcement folks, but she never watches a single round of it. The bullfighting, bull riding, she really enjoys. Yeah.
You know, with the Oklahoma having a team, the Wildcatters, and just being in town and kicking off the team season at Paycom every July, I believe, or June or July, it's coming up. I'd never been to it. That was my first time too, and I thought it was incredible. So it was great to see you share that passion too. Cindy likes firefighters and supports the law enforcement, but won't watch the prize fighting and the gladiator mentality.
She will not watch the MMA at all. No, right. She not a single swing. She will go and she'll chit chat with folks and encourage them, but no, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. So, backing way up, I'm sure you get a lot of grief for this. You grew up in Texas.
I know. I was born in Dallas. My mom was there, so I thought I should be born in the same place my mom was.
Yeah, most people.
Yeah, right? Most people do. Yeah.
Tell me about growing up. Tell me about kind of childhood memories and what kind of stands out for you when someone asks you what do you remember about growing up in Texas?
Yeah. So at a typical 60s, 70s growing up, and the transition of what was happening. My parents divorced when I was 4 years old. Mom moved in with my grandparents. They had a detached garage behind their house. They lived very simply. We call it poor now, but it was just simply back then. And so I grew up in that. They had converted the detached garage into some living space on it. So we moved in there, lived there for a while until Mom could get on her feet. She was a librarian for public schools the entire time. I remember every summer, every other kid got to go out and go play. I went to the library and shelved books. That's what I did. We was checking in all the new books and getting the new labels on them. And back in the day, putting cards in the card catalog, and no one even knows what those are anymore. That was kind of growing up for myself, my older brother, and I with my mom. Mom remarried when I was 12, and we moved to Garland, Texas at that time. And lived there, and so it was, living simply, as I say it now. But my mom deeply loved me. She's gone now. She died of Parkinson's about 3 years ago, and so for families that have walked through Parkinson's, they know full well what that means and what that looks like. It is a very difficult goodbye to be able to walk through someone with Parkinson's on it. But we never ran out of love from my mom, but it was pretty simple life.
Yeah. Did Mom have a specific love for a genre of books, or just all books in general?
It was all books in general. Okay. She was an avid reader, loved writing, loved meeting authors, loved engaging. She worked with children's books a lot, did a lot of elementary age. So she really, if you pushed her, she read a lot, fiction, nonfiction, but she loved children's books.
Did you have a book growing up that you read cover to cover those summers?
Oh gosh, yeah, I had a ton of them that I read cover to cover. So that was a given for me. Growing up in the librarian's home, where there were two words we had: "What are you reading now?" and "Look it up." You could never say. Back in the old days when we didn't have the encyclopedia in our pocket with a phone, it was literally having to go research things and go figure it all out.
Okay, What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm actually reading a biography from a pastor that was my pastor when I was in Dallas. I was at First Baptist Church in Dallas, and my pastor's name was W.A. Criswell. He was a very powerful speaker and communicator, but he was there as pastor over 50 years and was a bit of history for him just personally. Was actually born in Oklahoma, but then moved to Dallas. He always just joked that he was in Greer County in far southwest Oklahoma, which was actually part of Texas at one point, which is its own long story. But it's an interesting biography right now about W.A. Criswell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you grow up, mum's a librarian, you're learning all these things, you're not forced, but you have a love, maybe you're forced, who knows, you have a love for reading
Sure.
and learning and history. It says on Wikipedia that your grandparents are dairy farmers, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. My dad's parents were dairy farmers.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mom's parents owned a dry cleaners in South Dallas, and so they ran a dry cleaners for the longest period of time. And it was a tiny little, I like you to envision a little strip center, little snow cleaners there in South Dallas. And then my dad's family are dairy farmers in North Texas.
So you grew up with plenty of examples of work ethic, entrepreneurship, and just, David taking everything day by day and not working a normal 9 to 5. You work because you work. That's the right thing to do.
I've literally never had a time in my life I haven't worked 2 jobs until now. This is the first time I haven't been working, quote unquote, 2 jobs. But quite frankly, I still feel like I'm working 2 jobs because I work in DC, then I come back home and work here, and then I'm working solo all weekend. So it still feels like it. But no, with my family, you work because it's important for the rest of the family that everyone works, but it's also important to the country, quite frankly. We saw work as serving your neighbors. When you're a dairy farmer or when you're a librarian or when you're running a dry cleaners, you're really taking care of other people. That's what you do.
Yeah. Did you mentioned your older brother. How much older is your brother?
4 years.
Okay. So like most.
But I'm taller than he is, just for the record. Yeah.
My younger brother's not as tall as me, but he wishes he was. So like most younger brothers, you look up to your older brother, you're trying to follow and, trying to learn things faster than he does, but also he's trying to get you into trouble as much as possible.
As much as possible. That's right. As much as possible. I have a funny joke that I just joke, but I have a bill called Ending Government Shutdowns or Preventing Government Shutdowns. Government shutdowns drive me crazy because they're all just drama, and the political class all runs in and they love all the drama, all that. But I say that I have a solution to this that's from my mom and what she did to my brother and I. When my brother and I growing up, when we get into a fight, she'd send the 2 of us out of the living room. Like, no fighting in the living room. You're bothering the whole family. So go to your room, duke this out, and when you're done, come out. But don't bother the rest of the family on it. Yeah. And as funny as it sounds, this bill that I have literally does the same thing. It's just as simple as that. It's like Congress should fight all this out, leave the rest of the American people harmless, no drama out there. Just keep the funding going while we fight everything out. And when we're resolved, then we come back out to everybody else on it. So we stay in session every single day until we solve the problem with the American people are harmless. And I tell people all the time, it's literally from my mom. Just go fight in your room. Don't disturb everybody else.
Tell me about childhood James's dreams when you were moving to Garland. You're 12 years old. Your brother's 16. What do you think you're going to do with your life? Where do you think you're going to go?
Wow, that's a great question on that. For me, I'm not sure I knew. It was a little bit listless on that. I knew I didn't want to do education because Mom had done education, and I fought that like crazy when I went to college. And then I changed my major to education because I love still working with students. When I was about 17, I really sensed this calling to be able to really serve people. Didn't know a lot of what to be able to do with that. I talked to my pastor, and no one in my family had been in ministry at all. And I talked to my pastor, and I just said, this is a sense of a calling that I have. And he said, I think you have a calling to be able to minister to people. And we had a long conversation about that. And I remember sharing that with my church at one point. They had me literally stand up and kind of tell my story in a little church there in East Dallas. And I shared my story on that. And I, for 22 years, worked with students. For me, I had this desire to say, what can I do to help families? And for me, directing the Falls Creek camp here in Oklahoma and serving as a youth pastor was a way to really live out this sense of, I just want to be able to help people. What can I do to be able to do that? And I know that sounds weird for like a 16, 17-year-old, but I think it's somewhat from the family that I grew up with that was love working and love serving. But then also this sense of what can I do to really help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any core memories from high school before you lead into university?
Oh, I was the nerdiest kid in high school. My best connection in high school is my wife. Actually, we ran around with the same group of friends. We didn't date each other except for one time we double dated to prom. So my wife now was the other girl in the double date to prom in high school, which we still laugh about that story on it. And I always used to kid with youth when I was doing all the youth ministry. I would say to teenage boys, okay, keep yourself pure, honor God in the way you date and everything else. But always, if you go on a double date, check out the other girl. That may work out better. And all the teenage girls would go, that is terrible advice. And I'd go, my wife's pretty amazing. And 33 years later, we're still very happy about that. So my connection with Cindy is by far the best part of my high school time growing up. But I was the nerdy kid. I was in Latin club. I was in band. I was in National Honor Society. I was in all of that group. I was never in student council. I wasn't cool enough to be elected in student council. So it was, but that was kind of high school life for me.
What was your instrument in band?
I was a percussionist.
Okay.
And there's a difference between a drummer and a percussionist. A percussionist can actually read music. And so that means I could do mallets, I could do timpani, I could do all the snare drum. But in marching band, I was the lead snare drum in the line for the drum line, which I love doing. And then in orchestra time, you're counting like 48 measures till you hit one triangle ding in the orchestra. It was terrible. So yeah.
We've got a pretty good music scene here in our. What's the right word for it? Our Civic Center is great, right?
Yeah.
They're the Oklahoma City Philharmonic and everything that they do.
Oklahoma definitely punches above our weight in music, whether it is rock, country, jazz, whatever it may be, to our Philharmonic. It's pretty remarkable.
Do you get to make some noise every now and then in the music world, or not? No, not for fun.
Not really. Yeah, no. It's been years on it. When I was at Falls Creek, they would occasionally. There was a time where we had an orchestra there, playing along with some of the worship music there, and they would pull me over and playing timpani or something else on that. But that's a pretty rare moment.
Okay, we have to make that happen soon. There's plenty of people listening to this that want to see you up there, I'm sure. So you have this moment. You're 16, 17. Feel like you're called to really serve. I assume growing up that time, UT is close. UT is everything. It's sport. It's all the things in the area that you're growing up in Dallas, and so it seems like the only logical place for you to go or wanted to go to.
Yeah, it's interesting. My older brother went to Baylor, which is about 2 hours away. University of Texas was about 3.5 hours away drive to be able to get there. Obviously, big school, big state school. Honestly, I had thought about going to Baylor, but after my brother had gone, we had no money left to be able to do that. And so a state school was the only option. As crazy as this sounds, thinking about this now, processing it through, my most expensive semester at the University of Texas, with my athletic pass, all of my student fees, and taking 15 hours, my most expensive semester was $550. That was my total package for tuition and everything else. And so when people look at it and you think about that time in Texas, how much public education was really subsidized, and I was having $550, and it included my full athletic pass to everything else in that $550. So totally different time for trying to be able to do education. But if I can be blunt honest on this, my cousin was also going to the University of Texas. The two of us were going to live together, and UT was far enough away from home that I couldn't get home every weekend. No one expected me to get home, but if I wanted to get home, I could. Yeah. It was just kind of at that spectrum on it.
So you mentioned that you fought education for a while.
Yeah.
What was the initial major then?
Yeah, I started as a business degree.
It was business.
Yeah, I started as a business degree. Loved it. In fact, it was funny. My pastor in Dallas, I asked him directly, going into ministry. I said, I'm going into ministry. I'm going to do that. What do you wish you would have taken in college when you went? And I told him I can't afford to go to a Christian school or anything like that right now. So we're gonna go to public school. And he said, well, I wish I would have got a business degree. If you're in ministry, you do a lot of just running the office, everything else. I wish I would have got a business degree. Okay. I said, that's great. So I did that for a year. I just hated it. I just hated all the classes, everything else on it. And so I changed my major at the end of the first year. And I remember coming back home that summer, and I saw my pastor, and he said, "How are classes going?" And I was like, I knew this was coming. I said, "Well, I switched my major to education." First thing he said was, "Oh, I wish I would have gotten an education major when I was in college." I was like, why didn't you tell me that before on it? But it was just this really funny thing. But I loved the whole process of education. My older brother's an educator. My mom was a lifelong educator. I thoroughly enjoy the process in all my classes.
Yeah. While you're at UT, is there anyone that stands out as a professor that really kind of shaped your next formative years as a young man?
I think there were a couple that knocked some edges off of me. For me, as a Christian, going to the University of Texas was a challenge. That was a time when deconstructionism was really on its rise as a philosophy. And I had professors that literally called me out as a Christian in a class. And at that time, our classes were about 500 people in a class. Classes there just really, really large. And I remember several times a professor specifically pointing me out and humiliating me in class because I'm a Jesus guy, and they're like, "That's ridiculous. That's a dumb thing to do." So it wasn't necessarily that there's one that was a greater influence on me, but they were just honing me to be able to challenge my faith, quite frankly. Is this real or is this not real? If it's not real, they were eager for me to be able to push it away. But if it was real, live it out. Yeah. And so that was a real nudge for me in many ways.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like, dealing with that as a young man and being kind of singled out, in a class and kind of testing your belief, right? Yeah. Like, and testing your faith and testing everything that you have learned growing up and your family's instilled in you in class.
Yeah. For some people, they really can't process faith, and so they don't want anyone else to have it either. And I look at it and say, we should be respectful of faith. If someone has a faith, guard that. And it's one of these unique treasures that we have as an American value, that from the very beginning of our country, we've learned to be able to respect other people's faith. Now, we weren't perfect on that, especially the first 100 some odd years. We're still figuring it out. But we're in a phase now, if someone's Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or a Muslim or has no faith at all, we can respect that as a culture and just say, okay, I may agree or disagree with that, but I respect that in you. And there are some people that just can't do that. They're so closed-minded. They just like, if you have a faith, I hate your faith. And I always want to ask them, why would that bother you? Yeah. Well, why would somebody else's faith bother you that much?
And your brother going to Baylor obviously had a completely different experience than you did going to school. Yeah. Because he's around people that think like-minded and are there. Right.
Yeah, my wife went to Baylor as well, and so she was my wife then, but we married after. We were both working on our master's degree before we actually started dating, and then, but we'd stayed in contact all the years. She and I had this old running joke that at the University of Texas, people would, if they went to church, they would go to church, and then before they went to lunch on campus, they would go back to their room, change clothes into grummy clothes, and make it look like they didn't go to church. At Baylor, they would skip church, and then they would dress up for lunch and make it look like they went to church that morning. So it's just a totally different peer influence kind of experience.
Yeah. So you're in school, you change your major, and the plan is to go into ministry once you graduate?
Yeah, it was. In fact, I started ministry. I started working with students even while I was in college. Yeah, I started working at a church in North Austin, serving as a youth pastor there full-time. And again, I was in my student teaching. I was also youth pastor, also taking all the hours and classes and working at a church. And so it was back to what I mentioned before. I've just never had a time I wasn't working two jobs. Even in high school, I was working one job weekday nights and another job weekends.
Okay. Any favorite jobs from over your time?
No, you got to go back to your first one, Baskin Robbins. I was 14 years old. Okay. 14 and a half was the youngest. It was the youngest you could be and still work. Yeah. And it was like a limited hours, but nothing like a 14-year-old walking to work in a brown and pink polka dotted shirt. To go walk. It was about, 15 blocks from my house is where I'd walk down to go work at the Baskin Robbins. So, dipping ice cream, which for the record, Baskin Robbins dips are half the size of Brahms ice cream dips. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah. My first job was at Pizza Hut, and I always used to just make my own, whatever concoction of pizza that wasn't on the menu. Did you have your own special ice cream?
100%.
Okay. Do you remember?
It was an orange freeze that I would break up the sugar cone and put into it. So it was, I could just scoop it and make it extra thick, so I could just scoop it out and have this really rich orange freeze with the bits of the sugar cone into it. Not on the menu.
There it is.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could ask for that today. Yeah, that would be amazing. There's still a few around.
There are Baskin Robbins around, but yeah, I'm
definitely
definitely a Brahms guy because quality and quantity both go together there.
That's true. What was your Brahms order?
Well, let's just take yesterday. It is a chocolate shake with a whole banana mixed into it, which is still not as good as the holiday time. Once you get to October, they start putting their holiday flavors out. I do a shake that is half eggnog ice cream, half chocolate ice cream, and mix that into a shake. Don't knock it till you try it.
Okay.
They will serve that in heaven. Yeah.
Sounds like that's going to be an office order coming up soon. Girls in their room and turning up their noses at it. Oh, it's great. Tell me about your master's. Was that the plan, or did you think
it was the plan?
Continue
actually.
education.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Okay.
if you're going to go into ministry and continue to do that, I want to be able to be ready. Mm-hmm. So I went to Southwestern Seminary in Fort Worth. It was close to home, and I could literally commute to be able to get back in there. I, again, didn't have much money, so it was great, good education. The master's degree there is 96 hours. It's a very, very long master's, so it took 4 years to be able to get through that. I worked full time through that time as well. Cindy and I married halfway through that time of the master's, but it was Greek studies, it was Hebrew, it was all the New Testament, Old Testament studies, it was education classes, all those things.
Yeah.
Tell
me about your wedding day.
Awesome day. It's a blur, honestly. We were married in 1992, which Cindy and I, when people ask us how long we've been married, our standard answer is not long enough. But we married in 1992 at what was Cindy's home church, and really, really a special day in a million ways, as it is for everybody. Yeah.
Do you, at this time, is politics on the radar at all, or are you thinking I'm going to be a minister? Is Falls Creek on the radar at this point when you're doing your masters?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. So I was serving in student ministry and was helping every way that I possibly could. I was traveling all around the state, then in Texas, and I was doing a lot of work. And there was a guy in Oklahoma that coordinated a lot of the work here, and as well as some of the youth work, but he wasn't leading the youth work. And he wanted to bring somebody on to be able to help more with that. He knew one of the guys in Texas. He reached out to him and asked if he could interview me, and I came up to be able to interview in the fall, winter of 1994. Okay. And started going through all the interview process and then Cindy and I prayed about it and came. At that time, even Falls Creek wasn't on their radar. It was just, we're going to come and help with the student ministry for what's now called Oklahoma Baptist. Mm-hmm. It's the collection of all the Baptist churches in Oklahoma when the work that they do together. Each church is autonomous, so they have their own business, they have their own pastor, they have their own leadership team, everything else on it, but they also do some work together. Like when there's a tornado, which of course never happens in Oklahoma. Never. It's super rare. But Oklahoma Baptists pool their resources and their people and send out chainsaw teams and go and help people with cleanup. And they do disaster recovery. They're out, the Oklahoma fires that happened recently, they had vehicles out there feeding all the first responders, taking food to them, getting as close as they possibly could to be able to make sure they're getting water, food, everything else. So a full kitchen. That's work they do together on it. And so I was in that coordinating work for what we all do together. And one of those things we do together is Falls Creek. It's the largest camp in America. As far as we know, it's the largest Christian camp in the world. We have 51,000 guests a summer that come to Falls Creek. It's just a very unique place. 10% of all the teenagers in Oklahoma come to Falls Creek every summer.
Yeah. That's an amazing stat.
Yeah.
In Davis.
It's in Murray County, right outside of Davis, Oklahoma. Yeah,
just beautiful.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's scrubby Arbuckle Mountains, they call it. Yeah. Technically, people in Colorado wouldn't call it a mountain, but we do. But so it's our hills in Arbuckle, and that's really just a fun, beautiful area.
Yeah. So when that happens, do you have kids at this point? Are they any of the girls?
I do, actually. Our youngest was born in 1996. Okay. And so we literally, when Cindy and I first moved to Oklahoma, we had no children at that point. Yeah. In fact, my mom said, "You're going to move to Oklahoma, you're going to have kids and never come home." And that was true. Yeah. Yeah. We planned right here. This was where, as soon as Cindy and I got married and we moved here, we loved it and planted right here.
Yeah.
Bought a house, and this was home. And
So you started working at Falls Creek in 96, you moved up in 95.
yeah, actually came up in 1995. My first summer at Falls Creek was 1995.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
it
was just after, obviously, May of 95.
That's
which
correct.
Is coming up 30 years.
That's correct. Yeah, April 19th, 1995.
April, yeah.
We actually moved to Oklahoma on April the 23rd of 1995. So I was sitting in my living room packing boxes in Fort Worth, leaving out from the seminary, getting ready to move to Oklahoma, watching on the television all that was happening at the Murrah building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mom's probably like, why are you going?
Oh, no.
Again.
Yeah, my grandmother called to say, hey, that's a dangerous place. And I told her, hey, that's the place God's called me to be. And I'm going on it. But I will never forget driving. We're literally in the moving truck, driving through Oklahoma City, listening to Billy Graham preaching at the fairgrounds as we're passing downtown Oklahoma City. And just that memory, it just burned into me of processing through everything. When I came to the office the first day, one of the folks that worked right down the hall from me, she had a family member, was the very last one that was actually identified. And so it's like a person I just met, but is in this grieving process that you can't even process on it. So trying to be able to meet people and who they are now wouldn't have been who they were a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's driving through town, like how that things come together, right? That's you're driving through, you listen to Billy Graham and you see this happening, and not to mention, he's doing it at the state fairgrounds, which is going through its own moment.
Yeah.
The last state championships at the big house before the new one opens is another thing that's happening in Oklahoma City. But so you moved to Oklahoma City even though Falls Creek was in Davis?
Well, I moved to the head office for Oklahoma Baptist is in Oklahoma City.
Got you.
Yeah, this is home base on it. And then during the summers, we would move down to Falls Creek and coordinate all the programming. There was somebody there that ran the facilities. I ran all the programming during the summer. Okay. And so this was a natural place to be able to, organize, get everything coordinated. We still traveled around the state. Lots of other things that I did besides just Falls Creek, but Falls Creek was the most visible of those.
Yeah, and Cindy was alongside you, working with you at the same time? Or
she actually was alongside of me. Cindy is a speech-language pathologist.
Okay.
And she is exceptionally gifted at that. It's fun. I'm very proud of my wife in a million ways, but she often gets the cases in speech-language pathology that have not been successful for other, what are called SLPs, other speech-language pathologists, where they struggle with it. And so she'll have the opportunity to be able to take a different tact to be able to figure out how to be able to solve the issue that's there. Yeah. And she's just really good at what she does.
It's amazing. I can clearly, and people who know you will not find this surprising at all, but I can, we're in the room here, and I can, the way that you light up when you talk about your wife. So it's, I just want to put that in. It's very clear. And clearly she's very, very important to you.
She is.
I'm not saying that your kids aren't, but,
which they are.
They're probably laughing at that too. But
they would laugh at it and say they've always heard that they were second, that Cindy came first.
So Falls Creek, tell me about that first year. Tell me about your kind of, you're a young man at this point, you're married, you have a young daughter, you're going to work at Falls Creek, you think this is my life, this is what I want to do, right? This is everything that I thought at that moment when you're 16, 17, I had this, I'm going to lead students and I'm going to teach people. I assume you feel like you've hit the jackpot, right?
100%. When you work with students, Falls Creek's the greatest place on earth to be able to serve because there's 5,000 students a week that are there. You have a very unique opportunity. Falls Creek's a unique setting in a million ways. It's not just the geography of it, but it's 85% of the students come from Oklahoma, 15% come from outside the state, but they come from every corner of the state as well. So you've got students that are from around downtown Oklahoma City, and you've got students from Cimarron County, way on the tip of the Panhandle. They're all together. They're next to each other. So 5,000 teenagers with all these different backgrounds and all these different perspectives that are all there. But the common feature among all of them is they're away from home for a week, and they have the opportunity to reprocess. It is a spiritual place. I mean, it's a faith-based camp environment where students have the opportunity to be able to evaluate where they are spiritually and to be able to ask themselves hard questions on it. And for a lot of students, they've spent time thinking about their physical life, their dating life, their life with their family, maybe what they want to do one day. But very few 15-year-olds stop and process, who am I spiritually? That's a part of life. That's just a reality of life. And very few people have slowed down enough at that point in time when you spend all your time chasing girls, to also decide, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be on the inside? And so Falls Creek's this really unique place where people take time to slow down. And we push that to say, we're going to give you time just by yourself, just to be able to read scripture and to be able to process and to be able to think about this. It's going to be your decision. You've got to be able to decide what you want to be able to do in this. But for thousands of students over the years, lots of folks have come back to me and said, hey, I was at Falls Creek one time, and that was really a meaningful place for me that set a different direction for me.
Is that, as Falls Creek and your experience of Falls Creek for the time that you were there, is that your just, I think you're known for leadership, right? And I'm just thinking you're in charge of this just massive camp that has this huge impact for kids in such a pivotal age. As a leader, when you're talking about programming, I mean, you're the one who's putting things together and telling them what they're going to learn and leading a team and you're that size. What are the lessons that you learned as a leader during that time?
There's a lot of leadership lessons there. We have if you have 100 and let's say usually 110, 120 churches that are there that week, that means you've got 120 different attitudes, ideas, what we should do, how we should do it. The camp is also over 100 years old. It has a lot of great traditions, but it has some traditions that slow it down. That were a good tradition in 1962, but may not be a good tradition now. And so part of the challenge that I had coming in, and I actually started directing the camp. I was on the staff in 95 and 96. I was asked to start directing the camp in 1997. So part of the role in 1997 forward was, what are the things that need to stay and what needs to go? What slows us down and what are things that actually help us, that are foundational to who we are and what we're trying to accomplish here, and trying to separate that out. And I remember saying to several folks there, hey, I'm 27 years old at that time. I'm young enough that I can outlive a lot of people here to be able to, so I don't have to be in a hurry. I can take methodical steps and to be able to just press, to be able to say, we're going to start making some changes here to help us. In the past, about 25 years prior to when I got there, the camp had been down in attendance every year except for 2. So we were in the wrong trajectory. And so for me, this was everybody thinks this place is valuable, and it is. It's important not only to Oklahoma Baptist, but it's just important to Oklahoma. It's been this great tradition that's been around our state since the birth of our state. I thought, okay, don't mess this up, but do help turn this around. And so my push was to work with other leaders, to work with folks, to be able to pull folks together to say, how do we turn this trajectory around? So we went from 27,000 people a summer in 1997 to 51,000 people a summer by the time I left in 2009.
Yeah. What shapes you as a leader during those times? Any moments stand out?
Usually when somebody comes to be able to gripe in my face. And
it's always dealing with chaos.
It is always dealing with that when you're dealing with teenagers. And it's funny with adult leaders, because there's a lot of adult leaders there, obviously. They've stayed in cabins with teenagers all week. And by the time it gets to Thursday, the 6th grade boys have not been sleeping or showering as they should, because they're 12-year-old boys, and that's just how it is. And they're exhausted by Thursday or Friday. And so they come and catch me about whatever they're angry about. Yeah. And I get to try to talk them off the ledge and to say, okay, let's talk about this. Let's see if we can figure it out. And understand where somebody is, but also say, we're not going to fix this right now. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to be able to fix this long term and see if we can actually get this solved.
Were you there long enough for your girls to go through?
Yes, I was there. So we were there. My girls, honestly, so my oldest was born in December of 96. And so the first summer I started directing was 97. She was, 7 months old when she's coming to camp all summer long. And she literally spent every summer of her life going to camp. And then for my youngest, she was born in 2000, but she was born in April of 2000. So she was a couple of months old the first time that she was actually at camp. So yeah, they went all the way through, and then both of them, when they went to college, they went back and worked as some of the summer staff as well.
That's awesome.
I'm grateful that they loved it. Falls Creek's very, very, very special to me and my family. It doesn't matter what title I have for my entire life. My favorite title will be the title I heard all the time driving around in my golf cart and directing the camp when people just called me the redheaded Falls Creek guy. And I was like, I'm just fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because by the time you end up leaving, you're running the show, right? You're up there the whole time. You've overseen everything. Was it 96 to 2009?
96 to 2009. Yeah. Well, 95 was the first summer, and then 97 the first summer directing. Yeah. So 15 years at the camp.
Do you miss it?
Oh, yeah. I go down every summer still. Every summer, there's at least a break around usually the 4th of July that the Senate is not in session. And so I'll cut down there for an evening service and just get a chance to be able to slip in. Yeah, it's a very special place.
And as a Baptist minister, are you still today? Do you still get chances, obviously with your busy schedule, to preach and
I do.
And teach the lessons?
I do. When churches invite me, obviously I don't call and say, "Hey, you're inviting me." I don't do that. But when churches invite me, I still get a chance to do that. And I don't do politics when I'm there. Yeah. It's inevitable. A pastor will contact me and they'll say, "Hey, I'd love for you to be able to come preach, and we'll work on the date and when I'm actually going to be back from the Senate." And then usually about, 5 or 6 days out from that Sunday. So usually what is that Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe sometimes that Thursday, they'll say, "Hey, somebody in my church caught me and they're nervous about a politician coming to preach. Is this going to be about politics or is this going to be a rally?" I'm like, no. This is literally set that aside. Let's talk about the humanity of who we are.
Yeah. To that point, let's finish up our part one talking about, you mentioned your experience at UT and being singled out, and your leadership, your faith has been tested many times in your experience, and I'm sure it was tested at Falls Creek. Yeah. One of the things you did that was the first thing, from what I understand, was that you hired Jamie Smith to come and lead worship, which wasn't a thing for a female to lead worship during that time. Yeah. Share some story about that to finish.
I do. It's we talked about some changes that had to be made. The way that we worship was glorious and was majestic, but it wasn't always relevant to students in our current culture. And so it was big choirs and big orchestras and beautiful historic hymns that were very meaningful to generations. But more and more students were disconnecting from that. So I made a change. It started in our morning. We have services in the evening and in the mornings, and we shift over to the morning services. And I said, "Hey, I want to bring in some modern worship leaders that really work with students a lot, that relate to students a lot." And one of those was Jamie Smith, who's a fantastic worship leader, went to Oklahoma Baptist University, very well respected, traveled to a lot of our youth groups. But there were folks that both did two things. They was like, hold on, she's not just doing hymns, she's doing more modern songs in worship. They're worship songs, but they're more modern. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was it's a female leading worship. And where are we on that? And I had to smile and say, well, I see a lot of scripture. There's a lot of ladies that are involved in actually serving in worship and helping in all these different ways. I said, I don't see a negative here on this at all. And the challenge about how we actually do worship is a modern conversation that still the church struggles with. It's a generational thing more than anything else. It's a style and preference thing. If I go to a Church of Christ or to a Presbyterian church or Episcopalian church or to a Baptist church or an Assembly of God church, they may all have different styles of worship, but they're all worshiping the same God. And so it becomes this issue of, okay, what is it? When we're making, as the scripture says, a joyful noise unto the Lord, what does that really look like? And is that a certain tune that has to be there, or is it the words? And I'm a firm believer that it is the words more than the melody that actually drives the heart towards what it is to be able to know and follow God. So it was a bit of a risk in many ways because it was not well received by some and it was extremely well received by others. I didn't want to be divisive, but also didn't want to have us continue in decline year after year after year and to miss the opportunity to be able to engage with students with what I believe is a God who loves them deeply and who they should know.
Yeah. Love it. And I know Jamie and Justin are extremely grateful for your friendship and taking, which was at that time, a risk on that. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, but people who know you aren't surprised at all, because you're very confident and when you make a decision, it's the right, your belief is very strong in what you do, and that comes from your upbringing, your family, and all the things that lead to where we are today.
It is part of it. For me, there are risks that are responsible and there are risks that are destructive. I want to go with people on that. There's a point in time where people are ready to move, and there's a point when they're not. And it's the hardest thing in a political world, even making decisions, because there are a lot of times I'll hear people say, we need to move on this right now. And I'm like, you know what? You think that now, but there's not a majority of people that can really move. The country has not moved that way yet, or the state has not moved that way yet. We're still thinking about it. And so it is still processing. And it's not me saying that's the wrong thing. It's me saying it's the wrong time. I'm a firm believer there's the right thing to do and a right way to do it. And to run over somebody and to negate someone and to say your thoughts are not valid is the wrong way to do it. I want to be able to honor people, even people that disagree, but to say we still have to move. We've got to make a decision.
Yeah. So, but there will be coming a part 2 where we'll really dive into the political side of your career and why you decided to make that decision. But coming up, you have a book coming out that's going to talk about leadership and things that you've experienced in your political career. Let's finish rounding out part 1 with your book that's coming out in a few weeks. And have you always thought about writing a book when you? I bet this is to that point. I bet this isn't the book you thought you'd be writing when you were a kid growing up. But yeah, tell me about the book and why the decision to write the book now versus maybe it was 10, 15 years ago, it would have been a completely different book.
Well, it would have been a completely different book. But so when you grow up as the son of a librarian, you hold authors in such high esteem. I never thought I would actually author a book that would be published. So that let me start there. That was just not there. So and the second part of me is I pushed away. I had folks that have caught me for years saying, you should write a book. And I just pushed that away. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And then after years, I've had enough people say it. I thought, okay, I need to actually stop and to be able to do this. So the book's called Turnaround. It is a public release. It's at Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. It's at Books A Million. It's all the normal places. It's full published by the Humanics publishers. The Turnaround book, though, the theme of it is a challenge to really who we are as a people. There's a sense that sometimes in the political world, people say, if I just vote for the right people, it fixes everything. I was like, that's not true. We're a representative republic. That means what we see in Washington, D.C. is who we are. And when people say to me, things are so loud and angry and divided in Washington, D.C., it's a crazy place, it's a crazy swamp, I'll laugh at it and go, okay, well, it's really the mirror to the country. Washington, D.C. is the mirror that everyone looks at and says, if I can like or not like what I see in the mirror there. If you don't like what you see in D.C., or the attitudes that you see in D.C., or the division that you see in D.C., that's us right now. And the funniest statement that I typically make to people when they say, Washington, D.C. is so angry and divided, I will almost always say to somebody, what was Thanksgiving like last time with your extended family? And almost everybody laughs and says, oh, it didn't go well. My crazy cousin came and an argument started on something on politics and everybody left early, or I don't even go anymore because we've gotten so divided. I said, well, that's where we are as a country. So the issue is, how does that get better? What does that look like? And it's part politics. It's a lot of faith. Obviously, it's the core of who I am. It's a lot of personal stories. Some of them I've never shared publicly before. It's a journey book for me, and I hope it's a journey book for others. But it's a real push towards leadership. I try to take leadership off the top shelf because some people see leadership as a title or something you're kind of christened with. That's not leadership. Leadership, in its simplest form, is seeing a problem, calling somebody else and saying, we need to work on that. And when the two of you start working on it, you're a leader. I mean, it's just that simple. So if you see a problem in your neighborhood, in your community, or a family down the street, or whatever it is, if you can text a friend and say, come help me with this on Saturday, you're a leader, period. But people put this leadership under titles and roles on such a top shelf. People refuse to see themselves as a leader, and I don't. I see a lot of leaders in our community that really are leading that don't have the titles of leadership. And so I wanted to encourage that group. I tell a lot of Oklahoma stories of people that are leading in very practical ways that aren't on the big public stage, but they're really having an impact. And I want people to see themselves and to be able to say, okay, can I lead in that way? And maybe I'm not going to have that title, but can I lead in that way? Because if the country gets better, it's because we get better as people and as individuals and as families. And so I want us to be able to think about that as a culture more. So it's not a lecture book. It's optimistic. It's hope-filled. It's not the angry political rhetoric that we get used to today to say who's going to be the angriest person today. It's not trying to be that. In fact, it's a deliberate challenge to that, to say just because someone's angry doesn't mean they've got a problem that they're ready to solve something. Mm-hmm. In fact, almost always the email or the phone call that I did when I was angry is my worst decision, not my best. So I really want to be able to just nudge us as a culture on that. So like I said, it's a 3-year journey for me to write it. It's not recent. It's been stewing for a while and been writing for a while, but it's just now coming out.
Okay. I look forward to reading it, and look forward to sitting down for part 2 to dive into your shift from being at Falls Creek into running for Congress and that, whole side of your career, which is, it makes a lot of sense sitting in front of you, learning who you are and your beliefs. But I'm excited to dive into that story when we come to that. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I will finish with this last question. I have a tendency on this podcast to say last question, and I keep getting in my head.
That's like a preacher thing to do.
Right?
That's a preacher thing to say one last point 7 times.
Yeah. Do you have a life verse?
I have a whole series of life verses, of different verses, but there's a verse from Jeremiah 16 that really stands out to me that's very significant, where God is speaking to Jeremiah and says, if you will utter worthy, not worthless words, you will be my spokesman. And it's just a challenge to me personally to say, okay, say and do what's right, and then you'll be useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, appreciate your time again. Thanks so much for people listening. Thanks for being here. And stay tuned for part 2 and go get the book. Check out the book when it comes out. And I'm sure there's a lot. Turn around. There's a lot more life lessons in it than there is politics. But enjoy that. And we will catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. Turn your dream home into a reality with Home Creations, a family-owned and operated builder with over 40 years of trusted experience right here in Oklahoma. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to schedule a showing or visit our website for more details. Home creations, building homes, shaping futures, strengthening communities.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.